I have seen a lot in my 42 years on the bench. I have watched people lie to my face, cry crocodile tears, and try every trick in the book to avoid facing what they have done. But what walked into my courtroom on the morning of May 13th, 2024, changed everything I thought I knew about how cruel a person with a medical degree could be. There are cases that test your patience. There are cases that test your judgment. And then there are cases that test your soul. This was the third kind. The defendant was Dr. Julian Merritt, age 49, celebrity cosmetic surgeon and founder of Merritt Aesthetics on the east side of Providence. The victim was a 16-year-old girl named Ava Kowalski, who walked into his office with a scar from a car accident and walked out with a face she could not recognize. Hit that subscribe button right now because this story is going to break your heart, and then piece it back together in a way you will not forget. Let me take you back to how this whole thing started. The case file was on my desk with a red tab from my clerk Dorothy, meaning she wanted me to review it personally before the hearing. Case number 2024-CV-7290, medical malpractice, gross negligence, and fraud. The defendant was Dr. Julian Merritt, board-certified plastic surgeon, whose practice generated $3.8 million in annual revenue. He had 1.2 million followers on Instagram. He had been featured on 2 reality television programs about cosmetic transformations. His personal net worth was estimated at $11 million. He drove a $195,000 Aston Martin Vantage with vanity plates reading DRJM. He had built his entire brand on the idea that he could make anyone beautiful. The complainant was Ava Kowalski, age 16, a junior at Cranston West High School, represented by her mother Catherine Kowalski, age 41. I need you to understand who Ava and Catherine are, because without knowing them, this is a malpractice case. With them, it is a story about a mother who would do anything for her child, and a child who just wanted to look in the mirror without flinching. Catherine Kowalski was a single mother. She had been raising Ava alone since Ava was 3, after Ava's father left and never came back. No calls, no birthday cards, no child support. Catherine worked as a home health aide, providing daily care for elderly and disabled clients in their homes across Cranston and Warwick. She made $15.40 an hour. She worked 6 days a week, sometimes 12-hour shifts, lifting patients, bathing them, administering medications, doing the work that nobody sees and everybody needs. She drove a 2013 Hyundai Elantra with 174,000 miles and a cracked windshield she could not afford to replace. She had $680 in savings. She had been making payments on a $19,000 medical debt for 3 years, $175 a month, from Ava's emergency room visit after the car accident. Ava Kowalski was 16 years old. She was a quiet kid, good grades. She played clarinet in the school band. She had a small group of close friends. She loved drawing, the kind of detailed pencil sketches of animals and faces that her art teacher told Catherine showed real talent. When Ava was 14, she was a passenger in a car driven by a friend's parent that was rear-ended at a stoplight on Reservoir Avenue. Ava's face hit the seat in front of her. The impact left a jagged 4-inch scar running from her left cheekbone to her jawline. The ER visit stabilized her. A follow-up with a plastic surgeon was recommended for scar revision. Catherine's insurance covered basic wound care, but classified cosmetic scar revision as elective. They denied the procedure. For 2 years, Ava lived with that scar. She stopped drawing faces. She stopped sitting with her friends at lunch. She started wearing her hair down over the left side of her face and turning away when people spoke to her. Catherine told me in her testimony that Ava came home from school one afternoon, sat on the edge of her bed and said, "Mom, I just want to look normal. I am not asking to be pretty. I just want to look like myself again." Catherine said that sentence nearly broke her in half. Catherine started saving. She cut her grocery budget. She stopped buying herself coffee. She picked up extra shifts. She borrowed $2,000 from her sister and $1,500 from her church. After 8 months, she had scraped together $6,800, enough for a scar revision procedure at a clinic she had researched. But then she saw Dr. Julian Merritt's Instagram. He had posted a before and after of a teenage girl with facial scarring, and the results looked miraculous. His website advertised a compassion discount for young patients. The consultation was free. Catherine thought she had found the answer to her daughter's prayers. When Catherine and Ava walked into my courtroom, I noticed them both at the same time. Catherine was wearing a simple blouse and dark pants, clean and pressed with the kind of care a woman takes when she owns 3 outfits for occasions. Her hands were rough from years of lifting patients and scrubbing floors. She held her purse in her lap like it contained everything she had, because in a way it did. Ava sat beside her. She was wearing a hoodie pulled up, her hair over the left side of her face. She was 16 years old and she was hiding. She sat with her shoulders curled inward, making herself small in a room full of adults. But when her mother reached over and took her hand, Ava straightened up just slightly. She did not look at Dr. Merritt. She looked at the floor, then at her mother, then at me. And in that glance I saw something that I carry with me. I saw a child who was trusting the system to do what her mother had promised it would do. If you have ever watched your child suffer and felt helpless, if you have ever saved every penny for something that was supposed to make things better, then please subscribe to this channel. We are a family here, and we fight for families like the Kowalskis. Join us now. Here is what Dr. Julian Merritt did. In September 2023, Catherine brought Ava to Merritt Aesthetics for the free consultation. Merritt examined Ava's scar, told Catherine the revision was straightforward, and quoted a price of $9,200. The compassion discount for young patients was 10%, bringing it to $8,280. Catherine had $6,800. She told Merritt she could not afford the full amount. Merritt offered a payment plan. Catherine signed. She paid $6,800 up front and agreed to pay $1,480 in installments over 6 months. The procedure was performed on October 3, 2023. It took 40 minutes. Merritt performed it alone, without a surgical nurse present, in a procedure room at his office that the Rhode Island Department of Health would later find was not properly licensed for the type of work being done. He used a technique that 3 independent medical experts who reviewed the case testified was inappropriate for Ava's type of scarring and skin thickness. He did not order the standard preoperative imaging. He did not perform a proper skin type assessment. He spent 40 minutes on a procedure that the experts said required a minimum of 90. The result was devastating. When the bandages came off 2 weeks later, Ava's scar was worse. The original 4-inch line had been replaced by a raised, irregular keloid that extended from her cheekbone down to her chin and across part of her lip. The skin was discolored. The tissue was inflamed. One of the medical experts described the outcome as consistent with a procedure performed without adequate preparation, proper technique, or sufficient time. Ava looked in the mirror in Merritt's office and did not make a sound. Catherine said her daughter just went still, like something inside her had shut down. Then Ava turned to her mother and said very quietly, "You promised it would be better." Catherine brought Ava back to Merritt 3 times requesting corrective treatment. Merritt told her the results were within the normal range of outcomes and that additional treatment would cost another $7,500. He refused to acknowledge any error. On the 3rd visit, when Catherine pressed harder, Merritt told her, "Mrs. Kowalski, you paid for a procedure, not a guarantee. If you wanted perfection, you should have gone to a surgeon you could actually afford." Let me say that again. This doctor told a single mother who had saved every dollar, borrowed from her sister, borrowed from her church, and worked double shifts for 8 months, that if she wanted better results, she should have had more money. He said that to a woman who had given him $6,800 she could barely spare. While her 16-year-old daughter sat in the next room with a face that looked worse than when she walked in. Drop a comment right now and tell me how that makes you feel. And if you believe that a doctor's oath means something, that do no harm is not just words, hit that like button. Because what happened in my courtroom will restore something in you. When Dr. Julian Merritt walked into court on May 13th, the arrogance was polished to a high gloss. He was wearing a custom Tom Ford suit, slate gray, easily $5,500. His shirt had monogrammed cuffs. His tie was Hermes, that unmistakable pattern, $450. On his wrist was an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, the blue dial model, worth approximately $55,000. His shoes were Italian leather, mirror polished, $1,800 at minimum. He had a medical malpractice attorney from a firm in Boston, a specialist who billed at $950 an hour, carrying a leather portfolio thick with motions. They sat at the defense table with the practiced calm of men who had fought malpractice suits before and expected to win. Catherine and Ava sat in the gallery. Catherine in her simple blouse, Ava in her hoodie, mother and daughter, hands held between them. The evidence was presented. The three independent medical experts testified, 2 via video and 1 in person. Their assessments were unanimous. The procedure was performed negligently in an improperly licensed facility, without standard preoperative protocols, in less than half the time required. Photographs of Ava's scar before and after were displayed on the courtroom monitor. The before photo showed a thin, linear scar. The after photo showed the keloid, raised and irregular, extending across her cheek and onto her lip. The courtroom was silent while those images were on the screen. I heard someone in the gallery inhale sharply. Ava pulled her hoodie tighter. Then Merritt's attorney presented the defense. Inherent risks of cosmetic procedures. Signed consent forms. Keloid formation as an unpredictable outcome. It was all technically competent and morally bankrupt. Merritt waved his attorney aside. He stood, smoothed his Tom Ford jacket, and addressed me directly. He told me cosmetic surgery was an art, not a science. He said that patient expectations were often unrealistic. He said his practice had performed over 4,000 procedures with a satisfaction rate above 90%. Then he looked at Catherine and said, "I provided a service at a discounted rate to a patient whose family could not have afforded most surgeons. I went out of my way to help. The outcome was unfortunate but not actionable." My bailiff Carl shifted his weight. Catherine's hand tightened around Ava's. Ava was looking at the floor. I felt my jaw tighten. My father, God rest his soul, an Italian immigrant who drove a taxi and opened a small grocery store on Federal Hill, used to tell me, "The law is not just about punishment. It is about teaching people to see each other." I looked at Ava Kowalski, 16 years old, hiding inside a hoodie in my courtroom. And I looked at Julian Merritt with his $55,000 watch and his 4,000 satisfied clients. And I thought about teaching. Now here is where this story takes a turn. Tell me what you would do. Subscribe if you have not already, because what comes next is the moment that changed everything. My clerk Dorothy handed me a folder. Inside was a report compiled by the Rhode Island Department of Health and the State Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division. During the investigation of Ava's complaint, they had audited Merritt Aesthetics. They found that Merritt's procedure room had been operating without the required surgical facility license for 2 years. They found that 11 other patients had filed complaints about substandard outcomes in the past 18 months, 3 of them minors. And they found something else. On Dr. Merritt's private Instagram account, an account with restricted followers that the AG's office obtained through a court order, there were direct messages to a colleague. In one message dated October 17th, 2 weeks after Ava's procedure, Merritt had sent a photograph of Ava's post-operative scarring with the caption, "Check this one out, total mess. Mother was a nightmare. Could barely afford the consult. You get what you pay for. You get what you pay for." He sent a photograph of a 16-year-old girl's damaged face to a colleague as a joke. He mocked her. He mocked her mother. He treated a child's suffering as content. The color drained from Merritt's face. His attorney reached for the folder. I let him read it. He sat down slowly. Merritt stood alone, his Hermes tie suddenly looking absurd, his monogrammed cuffs catching the light while a 16-year-old girl 12 feet away pulled her hoodie over her face. If you have stuck with me this long, you are incredible. Hit subscribe. What comes next is the verdict that restored faith in humanity. I took a breath. I looked at Dr. Merritt, and then I looked at Ava. And I spoke to her first, because she deserved to hear it before he did. "Ava, I want you to look at me." She looked up. Her eyes were wide and wet. "You came into this courtroom hiding. I want you to leave knowing that what happened to you was not your fault. It was not your mother's fault. You trusted a doctor and he failed you. That is on him, not on you, never on you. I could not help it. There were tears in my eyes. I turned to Merritt. Dr. Merritt, I am fining you $50,000. Every dollar will go directly to Ava Kowalski to fund corrective reconstructive surgery with a board-certified specialist of her family's choosing, and to cover the medical debt her mother has been paying for 3 years. His attorney began to stand. I held up my hand. You will perform 500 hours of community service at the Rhode Island Free Clinic's Wound Care and Reconstructive Referral Program. You will help patients who cannot afford cosmetic care navigate the system, schedule appointments, and access resources. You will sit with them. You will look at their faces. You will see the people you have spent your career treating as revenue streams. Furthermore, I am referring the facility licensing violations and the 11 additional complaints to the Rhode Island Department of Health with a recommendation for immediate suspension of your surgical privileges pending a full board review. Your ability to perform procedures on minors in this state should be revoked until every one of those complaints has been investigated and resolved. Dr. Merritt, you told this court that you went out of your way to help. You did not help. You took $6,800 from a woman who spent 8 months saving it. You performed a 40-minute procedure that required 90 in a room that was not licensed for the work. And when it went wrong, you told her she should have found a better surgeon. Then you sent a photograph of her daughter's face to a colleague and wrote, "You get what you pay for." I paused. I let the silence hold. Ava Kowalski is 16 years old. She plays the clarinet. She draws pictures of animals with pencils that her mother buys her one at a time because that is what the budget allows. She came to you because she wanted to look like herself again, and you made it worse. And then you laughed about it. In my courtroom, Dr. Merritt, there are no discount patients and premium patients. There are only people. And every single one of them deserves a doctor who sees them as human beings, not line items. The courtroom erupted. Catherine Kowalski was sobbing, holding her daughter. Ava had pulled her hoodie down for the first time that morning. She was crying, but she was looking at me, and she nodded. Just once. A small nod from a 16-year-old girl who had just heard a room full of strangers stand up for her. Merritt's attorney was closing his portfolio. Merritt himself stood motionless, staring at the defense table. The Tom Ford suit, the Audemars Piguet, the monogrammed cuffs, all of it meaningless. He did not speak. He did not apologize. He had nothing to say, because for the first time in his career, he could not talk his way out. Smash that like button if you believe that every child deserves to be treated with dignity by the people they trust. This story has one final chapter, and it is the reason I told you this would restore your faith. 4 months later, the Rhode Island Department of Health suspended Dr. Merritt's surgical privileges. The board review confirmed negligence in 7 of the 11 additional complaints. His medical license was placed on probationary status. His Instagram was deleted. His practice lost over 60% of its client base within 3 months. The Aston Martin was listed for sale. Ava Kowalski had her corrective surgery in July 2024, performed by Dr. Sarah Nguyen, a reconstructive specialist at Rhode Island Hospital, who volunteered to do the procedure at reduced cost after reading about the case. The rest was covered by the $50,000 fine. The surgery took 3 hours. Dr. Nguyen later told a reporter that Ava's case was entirely fixable and that the original damage should never have happened. When the new bandages came off in August, Ava looked in the mirror and started crying. Catherine was standing behind her. She told me later that Ava turned around and said, "Mom, it is me again." The Cranston community rallied around the Kowalskis. Ava's school organized a fundraiser that raised $23,000, enough to pay off the remaining medical debt, replace Catherine's cracked windshield, and set up a small college fund. Ava's art teacher submitted 3 of her pencil drawings to a statewide competition. She won 2nd place. The drawing that placed was a portrait of her mother's hands. I think about that case when I look at my own grandchildren. I think about a 16-year-old girl pulling a hoodie over her face in my courtroom because a man with a medical degree took her money and made things worse, and then laughed about it. And I think about Catherine Kowalski's hands, rough from 12-hour shifts lifting patients, holding her daughter's hand in a courtroom and not letting go. That is love. The kind that saves pennies and borrows from churches and works doubles and never stops fighting. And it is worth more than every Audemars Piguet and every Aston Martin in the world. My father used to tell me, the law is not just about punishment. It is about teaching people to see each other. I hope Julian Merritt sees Ava Kowalski the next time he closes his eyes. I hope he sees her hoodie. I hope he sees her mother's hands. And I hope he understands, finally, that a patient is not a transaction. A patient is a person. And a 16-year-old girl who just wanted to look like herself deserved so much better than what he gave her. To anyone watching who has been hurt by someone you trusted, a doctor, a lawyer, someone with a title and a degree, your pain is real and your voice matters. Do not let their credentials silence you. Speak up. File the report. Tell the truth. Ava's mother did, and it changed her daughter's life. To any young person watching who is hiding, who feels like they are broken, who turns away from the mirror, I want you to hear what I told Ava. It is not your fault. You are not less. And there are people in this world more than you know who will stand up for you if you let them. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you believe in real justice, do 3 things for me. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss a story like this. Leave a comment and tell me about a mother or father who sacrificed everything for their child. Someone whose hands tell the story of a life spent loving and working. And watch the next video, where a Wall Street executive tells a homeless veteran on the courthouse steps that he does not deserve to be in the building, and what that veteran is carrying in his pocket changes the judge's life forever. That one will stay with you. Thank you for being here. It is never too late to do the right thing. It is never too late to say thank you.